Welcome to Wild Spirits Outdoors, the place for real hunting talk, tactics, and a few laughs. Now let's dive in with your host, Brad Dijon.
Hey guys and gals, welcome back to Wild Spirits Outdoors. If you're listening on the day of the drop, today is November 25th, 2025. Today we're going to talk all things late season muzzleloader hunting. As you can see, I've got my muzzleloader proudly displayed here, and I've got some other goodies on the table. This is a fun time of year for me. When I start thinking about muzzleloader season, my mind immediately switches to, honestly, it switches to out of state hunting. Indiana and Ohio, particularly, come to mind for me. Had a fantastic time hunting in both locations during muzzleloader season. Uh, this buck right here is an Indiana buck that I shot during the 2023 December muzzleloading season in Indiana. If I recall correctly, don't quote me on this because I didn't look, but I know it's like mid late December. It's right before Christmas is when Indiana's muzzleloader season comes into play. There's a lot of fantastic opportunities, a lot of great public land in Indiana. Just like anywhere else, you just got to be willing to put in the work. But today's episode is really going to be a deep dive into late season hunting using the good old smoke pole. Going to talk a little bit about my plans coming up for December in Indiana, as well as my plans for the Ohio muzzleloader season, which is always uh, the latest hunt that I go on every year. It's usually like January 2nd, January 4th, right around there. It's a short season. I think it's a 4-day muzzleloader season, but I always enjoy heading to Ohio. And, this year, as I talked about on the last episode, my brother in law will not be able to join because he is having surgery to repair his jacked up shoulder. Yeah, getting old is a bitch. Uh, there's there's no sugarcoating that, but I'm excited for him to go ahead, get through that surgery, and make a full recovery. And then my buddy Steve, as I've talked about before, he will not be joining either due to some injuries he sustained during his time in the military. He has struggled with several surgeries on his feet, and he will actually be going to work with a company uh, to get a brace that will hopefully be, not only helpful but life changing for him to allow him to do some of the things that he truly loves to do, which one of those being hunting hill country in Ohio, which over the past couple of years has become very, very difficult for him to do. Just due to the lack of mobility in his feet. But praying for both of them, praying for good recoveries, and I'm really truly hoping and praying that they are both back in action for next hunting season and will be joining me again next year in Ohio. Something exciting for me, even though those two cannot join me, I invited a good friend of mine, my brother from another mother, if you will. This young man hails out of Wisconsin / Northern Illinois, depending on which house he is staying at. But good friend of mine, Brandon, will be joining me in Ohio, and I'm excited to bring him along for his first Ohio hunt. I know he is excited, and we've been talking back and forth. I've showed him, several of the pins that I have down there in Southern Ohio, and it's just going to be a good time. When I go to Ohio to muzzleload hunt, um, don't get me wrong, I'm down there to hopefully run into a great deer to harvest, but I'm truly down there just to enjoy the camaraderie with friends. And although my brother-in-law and Steve cannot join this year, I'm excited to bring Brandon along. He is a young man who really doesn't have anybody in his family that hunts, so he's been kind of figuring it out himself, and has been leaning on me for a little bit of guidance, which I'm truly humbled by and thankful for. And like I've said many times, guys, I'm not an expert when it comes to whitetail hunting. I've just got a lot of years of doing the wrong thing, and I do my very best to learn from my mistakes. And I think in doing so, I have become a decent hunter. Let's put it that way. And I pick and choose my battles. I pick and choose when to be aggressive, when to hold back. But when we get to Ohio, it's really it's no holds bar. We have a very short window. The deer are doing deer things that time of year. They're hungry. They're trying to stick close to food. It can be a challenge on public land, but it's a challenge that I readily accept and embrace. So, Brandon, if you're listening, I'm excited to have you join. It's going to be a good time, and win, lose or draw. When it comes to an actual taking of an animal, it's going to be a great time, great experience, and I'm happy to have you join. So we'll uh, we'll keep shooting messages back and forth. We'll keep sharing pins. We'll keep talking strategy, and it's just a few short weeks away. I think we're like 6 weeks away already from heading down to Ohio. So excited about that. Um, but yeah, today we're going to talk about some things related to muzzleloader hunting. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you guys. As you can see, I've got this muzzleloader sitting in front of me. This is a brand new CVA Optima LR. Um, I've always enjoyed the CVA muzzleloader platform. I had a CVA Optima for a number of years that has done me very, very well. Full disclosure, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but 2 years ago, I took my muzzleloader to Ohio for the late season hunt, and I'm really ashamed to say this, but I thought for sure when I came back home I had cleaned that gun. Um, we had a lot of rain while I was down there. Uh, Obviously, the moisture was high due to the rain. Um, Regardless, I don't know what happened, but in my mind, I swore that I'd cleaned that muzzleloader. Um, Last year, I didn't muzzleload hunt at all because I had tagged out um, in both Michigan and in Ohio, and chose during that late muzzleloader season that we go to Ohio. I chose to go hunt Kentucky with my bow and arrow, while my brother-in-law and Steve muzzleloader hunted in Ohio. So I didn't actually bring my muzzleloader with me, and again, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I did not clean that muzzleloader for 2 years. I thought for sure before I put it up after the 23 season that I had cleaned it out, but I had not. And this year, when I took it out to, just to clean it, I was going to shoot it a couple of times here this coming weekend. Um, when I took it out, I pulled the breech plug. I noticed the breech plug was still fouled. Looked down the barrel, and sure enough, I had left the Thompson Center Shockwave buried in there, and it really it really jacked my gun up. The amount of moisture that I trapped in the barrel created a lot of rust, and I spent, I don't know, an hour, and I don't even know, I don't even want to count how many uh, cleaning pads I ran through that barrel trying to clean it out, and it was just really, really bad. I believe that with some good solvents, I can get that gun cleaned up, and it'll still be a good functioning muzzleloader. But a local shop here near to me had a sale on these particular guns, and I was like, you know what? It's a beautiful looking gun. It's got a nitride barrel, vortex scope, all the goodies, 50 cal muzzleloader, and the price on it was really attractive. So I said, screw it, and I went ahead and I bought a new muzzleloader. So I'm excited to bring this to Ohio with me, and I'm excited to go in, get it bore sighted, get it sighted in on the range, and be ready to take it in and hopefully put it to use. So what I want to talk about in this episode is a lot of what goes into muzzleloader hunting, and really maintaining your gun, because uh, they are a little more finicky. There's a little more that goes into them when it comes to maintaining these guns, but they are a fun gun to shoot. And even though we are looking at a modern inline muzzleloader, uh, there's still a nostalgia there. And for the guys that are still out there doing it with the old school flintlock, or with a let's call it a true muzzleloader, round ball, all that good stuff. I envy you guys. You guys are hardcore. It's the equivalent to me of hunting with like a longbow or a recurve. It's another level, and I'm just not there. A lot of my muzzleloading hunting is done out of state, and I want a high confidency rate, and I want to be able to reach out a little bit farther and touch something if need be. Now, when it comes to muzzleloader season, I do still try to keep all of my hunting inside of 100 yards. But these modern inline muzzleloaders are capable of much more, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we get into today's episode. Before we dive in, no real new announcements. Merchandise is still cruising along. I will have some stuff out. I'm very confident I will have some good pictures out there of some of the merchandise that will be available prior to Christmas. We'll do pre-orders on that stuff, and I'm excited to bring it to you, um, guys. The following to Wild Spirits Outdoors is really humbling. I have not checked today, but I believe, at least as of yesterday, we were like 34 people shy of 1,000 subscribers, and that's humbling, and I appreciate it. I thank you guys so much, and I just want to continue to keep bringing you guys great content. I'm excited that we're going to have some great guests coming up. My taxidermist, Northern Pine Taxidermy, they will be joining us in studio here soon. Kind of waiting for the dust to settle. They are super slammed right now, but when I went and picked this guy up right here, which is my Ohio archery buck from last season, when I went and picked him up, the owner of Northern Pines had a great chat with me. He's excited to come on the podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts, the faux pas of bringing a deer to a taxidermy, whether it's bringing one in from out of state or your local deer, just some of the stuff that they run into that creates a challenge for them and can have a detrimental effect on your overall look of your mount. And we're just gonna shoot the shit. I'm excited about that. Michigan Boneheads Outdoors, if you guys are listening, super excited to have you guys come on the podcast. I know we kind of linked up through Facebook. It's been a great start to a great relationship. They are some good dudes. It's a father and son duo. They're excited to get into studio, and I'm excited to have them as well. That one might actually be more of a hybrid. I don't know if they'll be able to actually join in studio, so it might be something where I'm going to have to really test my tech savvy by bringing somebody in remotely. But we'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. I've got some additional guests lined up. I've got a guest that works for a conservation district here locally to me. We're going to talk about land management as we get into the latter part / end of season. Things are going to kind of shift. We're still going to talk whitetail, but we're really going to start shifting our focus towards property management, getting property set up if you have your own piece of private land. Some of the things I've done wrong over the years, some of the things I've done right, and some of the things that I'm learning to perfect. And obviously, as always, if you've been to the website, you know that Wild Spirits Outdoors also offers land consultation. So I'm excited to dive into that and really get into how we go about consulting on properties and really setting up a plan that is manageable and not just putting out this massive amount of data to you and saying, here you go, best of luck. We really want to set you up with a game plan as to how to go about managing your property and kind of the starting point and what the end game is. And that all depends upon the property, and it depends upon who owns the property, what their goals are. Some people want to shoot great bucks, some people want to see more deer, some people just want general habitat improvement, and Wild Spirits Outdoors is there for all of it and happy to assist. And I'm excited to start talking about that as we roll out of hunting season. Obviously, we're going to be talking about more things than just whitetails. I'm a huge fan of ice fishing. I'm looking forward to ice fishing season approaching. Hopefully, we have some great ice again this year, like we did last year. I love to walleye fish. I love to fish for crappie, bluegill, perch. If it's under the ice and it's a legal fish, I am all about going in there and going after it. So we'll talk about that as well. But we're still really going to maintain a whitetail focus. really throughout the end of the season, going into the off season as we prep for the coming season. Um, I'm ate up with whitetails if you guys haven't been able to figure that out yet. So it's always going to be a passion of mine and it's something we will continue to talk about. I think that pretty much wraps up the announcements. Let's kind of get into this. I have got a huge pile of show notes here just so I can stay on track. And, a lot of this stuff is stuff that you don't think about every day, stuff I don't think about every day, but it's stuff that as I'm approaching muzzleloader season is really, really resonating with me, and I want to share it with you. A lot of this information, guys, is going to be for more of the novice muzzleloader hunter, but I do believe that there will be some good information in here, even for the guys that are seasoned when it comes to muzzleloader hunting. So, without further ado, here is episode 14 as we're talking about dialing in our inline modern muzzleloaders. Um, we're going to dive right into talking about what is needed to really prep the muzzle loader. We're going to talk about how to maintain the muzzle loader, how to sight it in, and a little bit of tactics when it comes to this late season stuff. So, again, whether you're brand new to the world of muzzle loaders or you're a seasoned muzzle loader hunter, I'm really hopeful that there's a nugget or two in here for everyone. Um, Bear with me. Like I said, I've got a pile of show notes here, and I'm probably going to be looking at my notes quite a bit because I want to make sure that I cover everything that I wanted to cover. I tried to set this up for about an hour. We may run a little bit long, but I'm going to do the best I can to keep it around 60 minutes. So here we go. Let me take a quick drink. Just water today. Actually, before we get into it, I'm going to segue off of this. You know, as many of you that have followed along and listened to the show know, I do have 60 acres. It's like 59 and a half acres of private land in West Michigan. I've owned it since 2017. I've been doing my very, very best to try to manage that property and set it up for success. And I've done so many things wrong. And I've really, really learned from them. And I'm really excited going into the 2026 season. I really feel like I've finally got the pieces where I need them to be. And tonight after work, I had just a short amount of time, so I ran out to my property. Like I said, I had some loggers do some TSI in there this past winter slash early spring, and I have a great mix on my property. I've got a little bit of ridge systems. I've got high ground. I've got oak flats. I've got some open fields. I've got swamp. I've kind of got a great mix of everything, and it makes for a really good piece of property. But when it came to the TSI side of things, it was a little more difficult for those guys to access to get into certain areas. So they had to lay down a significant amount of corduroy access roads, and basically, if you don't know what that means, they took a bunch of tops, they took a bunch of small saplings that were kind of in their access trails anyway. They, instead of just mowing those down or pushing them off to the side, they cut them and then they laid them down across lowland so that they could drive their heavy equipment out there without getting stuck. Um, Fantastic for them, fantastic for me because it created some great accesses. But in those low spots, all that corduroy is significantly packed down into the ground. Um, if you've ever tried to walk across any of that, it's insanely loud. It's easy to roll an ankle. It's just difficult to traverse quietly. So there's a couple areas on my property that I came in with some fill dirt, and I actually laid a road down across the corduroy. And then there's areas where it's not super wet, but it was wet enough for them to be uncomfortable with driving their equipment in there. So they laid it down. I need to go in there and pull all that out of there. So I had about 30 minutes before dark tonight. I drove in there after work, got out, and I got about, I don't know, maybe 30 foot of that corduroy ripped out by hand. It's going to take me a long time to get it all out. But the beauty of it is once that stuff is out, so much of that is access is leading into my destination food sources, and it's going to make for some really, really good micro plots, if you will. Some great small food sources that are kind of guiding the deer into my larger food sources. And I do also have exciting news. Going into this season will be the first time that I have leased out about 8 acres of my 60 which is open field. It's just been farrow field. It was tillable. It's been tillable. It is tillable, but it has not been farmed in a number of years. But I was able to find a local farmer who was interested. We reached an agreement, and he will be planting about 8 acres, half of it in alfalfa, half of it in corn, and then flip flopping the following year. So I'm excited about that. Like I've said many, many times, I do not have high deer numbers where my property is, and these deer can travel some pretty significant distances just due to the way that the terrain is laid out and the way that all the woods and property around me is laid out. So I'm excited to have an opportunity this coming season to actually have more than just my destination food sources, but a true large destination food source for these deer. Part of the agreement for the farmer to come in there and to plant it was he would not harvest the corn until after December, and he would leave me 1 acre of standing corn through wintertime to really help hold those deer and give them a good food source throughout the winter. So very excited about that. I am super pumped just to see how this property plays out over the next couple of years. And man, do I have my work cut out in front of me. But yeah, I should back up and say for those that live in Michigan, you guys know that it is still right smack in the middle of firearm season that goes through the end of next weekend. Um, to be honest with you guys, um, my season as far as gun hunting out there is pretty much done. I might get out there and do a little bit of bow hunting, but um, with the amount of time that I hunted plus my cameras, I kind of know what's out there. Um, Through the first week of gun season, which is usually the roughest week on the deer, a couple of bucks that I would likely harvest with my bow have survived. They're still out there moving around. I am hopeful that they will make it through this last week, and will, obviously stay comfortable in my property and hang around more and more as we get into this late season when food becomes more of a driving force for them. So I really don't expect any surprises. I know random bucks can show up, but we're kind of through that major portion of the rut. Obviously, we'll have some trickling in of some other does coming into estrus late, some doe fawns coming into estrus late, but I don't really feel like there's anything that's going to surprise me. Now, I could be wrong on that. Obviously, a random great buck could show up and come cruising through, but I've kind of decided just to wrap it up a week early because I have so much work to do out there, and I'm going to try to get a significant portion of that corduroy pulled before the snow falls, because I don't want to be working on that through spring. I want to have that stuff out of there so that come springtime, I can get in there, I can disc, and I can plant and kind of shift my focus towards moving stands and really prepping the property. I am truly feeling like this is really coming together, and the next, hopefully for the next several years, things will just get better and better. But I'm really excited for the coming next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe 5 years to really see how things go. I am hopeful. I've already kind of made up my mind that I'm setting a 130-inch minimum on my property going into the next season. Um, Tough to do where I'm at because the numbers are low, the hunting pressure is high, but I truly believe, even though I only have 60 acres there, I truly believe it's being set up really for success and to hold a two, three decent bucks and give them a good safe place that I can strategically hunt and hopefully pick and choose my battles. In addition to a couple of my neighbors who also do a fairly good job of maintaining, a level of selectiveness when it comes to harvest. I'm excited to see what the next couple of years bring. So that was a long tangent to go on something unrelated to today's topic, but here we are coming into late season. Let's talk muzzle loading. So again, bear with me as I go through the show notes, but late season is a different kind of animal. Deer become more patternable, but they've been through it. They've been through the pressures of October, the pressures of November and gun season. They've been worn out from the rut. especially when you get into areas like where my private property is, where the deer numbers just in general are lower than they are in many other places in the state of Michigan. Those bucks are traveling farther distances. They're working harder. There's more competition for the breedable does. Um, so it's just it works them out and it creates a different monster when we get into late season. So we'll talk about some late season in the pressured areas like where my property is, and then obviously we'll talk about some of the out of state stuff that I will do. So um, as we get into this late season, December January timeframe, uh, the deer, like I said, they've been through it, but they are super food focused. They got to pack on calories. They gotta build those fat contents back up. They got to survive winter. And looking at the 10-day forecast here where I'm at, I'd say winter's coming, and my gut instinct tells me we're in for a good one. I think we could see some significant snowfall. I think we could see some good cold temperatures, similar to what we had last year. So it's great in certain aspects, but it's a challenge to the deer. So food and thermal cover are going to become the top priority for deer as we approach this. The deer are oftentimes quite skittish. They are slaves to their stomachs, so they will move during the warmest times of the day, uh, whether it's munching on woody browse, forbs, hitting a food plot, hitting an ag field, whatever it is. There's a good likelihood they're going to do that during the warmer parts of the day, which can create opportunities for us as hunters. But they're oftentimes very, very skittish. They've been through it. They're just worn out and they've been pressured, and you know every twig snap is a snap of the head. They're just super, super skittish. So those are things we got to think about as we go into that late season. Um, I like to hunt uptight to food, but your accesses in and your accesses out are crucial. Um, Not so much, I guess, if you're hunting, let's say, a very large tract of private land or maybe public land where, you know, there's 100 other people out there that can be hunting that same area, so the aggression level can still be higher. But if you're hunting a small tract like my private 60, I want those deer to really start feeling calmed down. So if I am going out there hunting late season, I need a bulletproof entrance and I need a bulletproof exit. I want to be able to get in and get out without spooking deer. And oftentimes there's going to be deer on the food source that I'm hunting when light closes, and obviously you can't shoot when it's dark. So after legal hours, I need to be able to get out of where I'm hunting and get out of there without scaring those deer. I want to put as little pressure as possible on the deer, keep their stress levels down, and keep them very comfortable on my property in hopes that they will essentially winter there. I've got plenty of food, I've got plenty of cover, so I want them to feel super comfortable on my property. Um, but I still love muzzleloader season. I love late season. It's actually one of the best windows to catch a mature buck, and catch him in an opportunity where he's quite patternable. Um, if you've got the ability to hunt a large chunk of private land, or I guess it doesn't really matter what size private land or public land, but if you have been able to capture any data on a particular buck that you are interested in or that you want to harvest, um, if he's survived till this point, he can become super easy to figure out come late season. Again, they're slaves to their stomach and they're slaves to cover. So if you can find those two, um, your chances of being able to figure it out and have an opportunity at that deer is very, very high come late season. Excuse me. Late season travel becomes very, very easy to follow along with. It's cover and it's food, and typically the distance between bedding and feed tightens up. They're not traveling significantly long distances back and forth between food sources and bedding. So that's a great opportunity to figure that out. And again, just find that bulletproof entrance and bulletproof exit to get in and out of there without busting them, without spooking them, without putting any more stress on them than they've already endured. Um, we're getting late into the season when it comes to this time of year, but patience is still very, very important. If you have the ability, if you have the land, whether it's public or private, um, it's not a time to necessarily get super aggressive. It's a great time to be patient. Pick and choose the days you're going to be after them. those bluebird skies, high pressure days, warmest part of the day is going to be a great opportunity. Sorry, I think my wife just pulled in because my security cams are going crazy. But so yeah, just think about it that way. You don't have to get super aggressive. If you are hunting public land where a lot of other people are hunting, what do you have to lose this late in the year? Go ahead and get as aggressive as you feel you need to. But if you're in public or private where you have the opportunity to kind of pick and choose, um, you can really hone in on what days, what temperatures, what pressure systems, what winds are going to be most beneficial and give you the best odds. And I said it last week, and I'll say it again. By now, late November, most people are done. Gun hunters, most guys are done. Bow hunters, most guys are done. There's not a ton of guys that go out and muzzleload hunt. Now, like in Michigan, we've opened muzzleloader up to all legal firearms, but still, you don't have near the numbers of hunters you're going to have late October and then into that November firearm season. So you don't have to necessarily feel like, you know, 10 other guys are going to be in there getting after it if I'm not in there. So I got to go and I got to go hard and I got to be aggressive. Certain areas, maybe, but big picture, the pressure is dropping significantly every single day. And really, after we hit the weekend after Thanksgiving, which is kind of everybody's last hurrah, if you will, pressure is going to drop significantly. So stay patient, pick and choose the weather, use it to your advantage. Keep an eye on barometric pressure, rising pressures are always going to be phenomenal. Cold fronts that come through, or if it's been significantly cold, those days where all of a sudden you kind of hit a warm spell can really be great. And then anytime we get, a good significant amount of precipitation in the form of snowfall can also be phenomenal. Leading into it, and then maybe 24 to 48 hours after that heavy snowfall, things can really pick up again. A lot of times when that snow comes hot and heavy like that, the deer will kind of hunker down for a day or so. But then they got to get up, they got to move, they got to eat. So I love hunting going into those big uh, storm fronts that are bringing in a lot of snowfall, and I love 24 to 48 hours after the snowfall, major amount of precipitation is stopped, then getting in there and getting after it. You can see a lot of movement. Um, so with all that said, I know I've talked about it in past posts. I talked about it a little bit last episode, so I'm not going to beat the strategy of late season over the head. I really want to talk about the old smoke pole here. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is cleaning and maintaining a muzzle loader. Very, very important. I mean, it's always important when it comes to a firearm to clean and maintain, take good care of it, keep it rust free, all that good stuff. But muzzle loaders are finicky. You have a breech plug. That breech plug is kind of like the hub or the most critical portion of that gun. A fouled up, rusty, dirty breech plug can lead to misfires, delayed fires, all that nasty stuff that we do not want to see happening. So having a clean muzzleloader is not optional; it's a necessity. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened to me in the past. In fact, the year I harvested this buck over my right shoulder with my muzzleloader, it was the weather was kind of weird. Like it was cold, but we had some significant rainfall. We had wind. Then we had temperatures drop below freezing. Creates a lot of condensation and creates freezing and thawing. And I fell victim to something that I had never experienced before because I have always tried to do a good job of taking good care of my muzzleloader and keeping it clean. But one thing in particular that happened to me is the first day down. To get into the spot that I hunted this deer, I had to go in uh, by water. So I think we had a John boat, like a 14-foot flat bottom for this particular hunt. I was trying to be careful to keep my gun from getting wet. I had a muzzle condom on it. I was trying to keep my breech dry. I did the very best I could. I got into where I was going. I climbed up out of the river bottom. I got up into where I was going, got up in my tree, got set up, and it was like, I mean, you couldn't plan it any better. It was like 15, 20 minutes after legal shooting. I had a great, like 130 inch whitetail come through about 75 yards. Had a great resting position up against my tree. I was rock solid. Um, Elected to go ahead and take a shot at that deer. And for the very first time with a modern inline muzzle loader, I pulled the trigger and nothing happened. Now, when I say nothing happened, it's not like nothing happened, but when you pull a trigger on a gun, you expect a kaboom, right? You pull the trigger, boom. Well, I pulled the trigger and there was this ever so slight delay, less than a second, probably a half a second. And it was my own stupidity and my own rushing things that it didn't register when I pulled that trigger to stay held on the animal because this is important. So guys that are new to muzzleloader hunting, when when you sight in on an animal and you pull that trigger, stay on that animal. Don't panic if the gun doesn't go off the second you pull that trigger. Pull the trigger and stay on it, for a good solid second or two. Just because what happened to me was I pulled that trigger and the hammer went forward, the primer triggered, but I'm guessing due to the moisture in the air and the moisture that had gotten inside of my barrel, there was a slight delay from the time that the primer fired off to the time that it ignited the powder and launched the projectile. So it was a very, very brief pause, but it was long enough where I pulled the trigger and nothing happened, and I literally picked my head up. When I did that, I know I moved with the gun, and then boom, my muzzle loader went off. And I don't know what I hit, but I'm sure I shot, you know, several feet over the top of this animal. Again, it's not like it was a long delay where it was like pull the trigger and da 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 boom. It was boom. But that was long enough where I pulled that trigger and I was like, what the heck? And I first in my mind, as soon as I pulled the trigger and nothing happened, I thought I forgot to put a primer in. So as I went to pick my head up, the muzzle loader went off. That's a challenge that comes with muzzleloader hunting because you have exposed powder. You don't have a casing and all that good stuff kind of protecting the powder. So just something to keep in mind for guys that are new to muzzleloader hunting. Stay on target. It's very important to not jerk the trigger. It's always crucial when you're hunting with a firearm to let that breath out and slowly squeeze that trigger. Don't anticipate the shot, just let it happen. But when you do that, it's really important with a muzzle loader to just stay on target because you could have a delayed fire. It's not common. It doesn't happen often with these modern muzzle loaders, but it can happen, and it happened to me. And thankfully, uh, the later that day, I had moved 400 yards farther from where I had made my initial shot, missed. Now, I did get down. I did go look where that animal was. I saw that deer run off for a long ways. Was very confident I missed it, but I did do my due diligence. I waited, half hour, 45 minutes. I got down. I went to the where it was standing when I shot, and I followed its trail for a long ways looking for blood. I'm very confident that I did not hit that deer, but I did move after I, kind of funkied that spot up, walking around in there and zigzagging, making sure that there was no chance that I had hit it. I moved about 400 yards, and then that afternoon I had an opportunity at this deer. But it's very, 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 very important to do everything you can to minimize precipitation and moisture creeping into your muzzleloader barrel. So um, when it comes to sighting in a muzzle loader, I like to swab my barrel after every shot. Uh, when it's when I come back in from a hunt, I like to break everything down, clean it out, and then reload. Especially when you're going on these hunts late season, which is the majority of the places I hunt. Muzzleloader season is in a late season, so like I said, you've got precipitation, you've got moisture. To me, it's always good to come back to camp, break things down, take the breech plug out, wipe everything down, let it dry out, uh, push out the pellets or the loose powder that you're using, and reload with fresh. Another good thing to do is when you're done and you have your muzzleloader prepped and ready to hunt, don't keep it in the nice warm cabin or Airbnb or hotel or warm in the back of your truck, wherever you're staying. Don't keep it in warm temperatures. load it, get it out to the truck, lock the truck up, and let it sit in that cold temperature so that you're not having to worry about bringing a gun that's 70, 75 degrees out into a 20-degree morning. And what happens? That temperature shift, things get wet, barrels get condensation, things get wet, and then you could potentially have a, foul powder. So I like to store my gun in the truck where it's out in the elements. Temperature wise, things stay similar to what it is outside. Just helps keep things from potential issues with moisture condensation. Um, when I do clean my gun out, I always run a dry patch after I've run any solvent. I continue to run dry patches until I'm pulling no moisture with that dry patch. Super, super important, guys, when it comes to muzzle loaders to keep that barrel dry. Um, Another often overlooked thing, let me quick take a drink. Another often overlooked thing, and I'm going to try to reach over here and not bump my mic or anything, but I'll grab my muzzle loader here and open this bad boy up. Pull this breech plug out. Now, this particular muzzle loader has a mag or a magnum breech plug, so it's an extremely long breech plug that is designed for magnum loads up to like 150 grain. But I know you won't be able to see it on the video, but that's the end of the breech plug. And if you were able to see it and look through it, and for those that are familiar, there is a hole in that breech plug, and on the back side is where your primer goes. And when that hammer comes forward, it ignites the primer. It shoots a flame through this tiny little hole, which catches your powder or your pellets, which ignites those and then fires them off. One of the most overlooked things on a muzzle loader is keeping the breech plug clean. I carry a nipple pick, which is just it looks like a brass bullet basically, and it's got a very small wire that retracts in and out of it. I carry that with me. Hang on, I'm going to set this gun back down. There we go. I carry that with me in the field. I carry it with me anytime I go muzzleloader hunting, and anytime I break the gun down, whether I've shot it or not. When I take that breech plug out, I push that little piece of wire out of that nipple pick, and I clean that breech plug. You always want that thing to be clean. That is the number one cause of misfires for muzzleloaders is a dirty or wet breech plug. Uh, on a mag breech, you're looking at 1.25 inches of a breech plug that primer fire has got to make it through to hit your powder or to hit your pellets to ignite to launch your projectile. So if that's fouled up or if it's super wet, that can extinguish that flame before it makes it to your powder, or it can significantly reduce the amount of flame that makes it out of that breech plug, which can cause delayed fires like what I experienced in Indiana a couple years back. So very important to keep that breech plug clean and dry. Keep that barrel dry. Anti-seize is your friend. I've seen a lot of guys, they take their breech plug out, they clean their gun, they put their breech plug back in, and they just reef on that thing and try to tighten it super tight. Guys, you don't need to do that. That breech plug is designed to go in, just past finger tight. It's just got to be tight and sealed up. You don't need that thing, you don't need to wrench it down or grab a pair of pliers and try to tighten that thing down. And it's important to run anti-seize. They make it in the tube form where you can put it on, or they even make it in like a chapstick, which is great. It's easy to carry when you're in the field. If you do need to do any maintenance to your gun, you take that breech plug out, you take that chapstick, you run it along the threads of the breech plug, thread it back in. That allows for it to go in by hand and to easily come out by hand. If you don't put anti-seize on it, you'll find that those things can get tight and very, very difficult to pull out. So anti-seize, whether it's in the tube form or whether it's in the chapstick form, is your friend and is very important for being able to quickly clean and prep your muzzle loader for the next shot. Let's see, what else do we have here? Like I said, that breech plug, that's a tiny, tiny little hole going from the primer to where your powder or where your pellets are. That's a very small hole. That thing gets fouled up, and you can have misfires or you can have non-fires completely. So it's very important to clean and maintain, keep the carbon buildup out of that breech plug. Um, Modern inline muzzleloaders use 209 primers. It's like a shotgun primer. It's very important to use fresh primers. I've never run into this, but I do know of people who have used old primers and they have pulled the trigger on a muzzleloader and there's a delayed ignition. 209 primers when they're really cold can be problematic. I've never experienced it, and I do hunt some colder temperatures, but I do always keep um, extra 209 primers in my pocket or in my speed loader. I don't know if you can see that, but I have a speed loader right on my sling that holds 3 rounds with my pellets, plus it holds 4 additional primers. I always keep those, but I like to keep some primers in my pocket just in case. Just in case something breaks bad, I want to be able to quick break down, get a new primer in there, and fire off. So, um, like I said earlier, super important with a muzzleloader to store it at a consistent temperature. If you're going to be hunting and it's going to be 15, 20 degrees out, the last thing you want is to take a muzzleloader that's been sitting inside 70, 75 degrees or, propped up next to the wood stove where it's super warm and then take that thing outside because it's going to create condensation, and condensation is the enemy of a muzzleloader. So make sure you store your gun at a consistent temperature and ideally store it in a temperature that's relatable or consistent with what the temperatures are going to be that you're hunting in. This muzzleloader is brand new to me. I've had it for a week now. Um, I did put the scope on. I did bore sight it, but I have not shot this thing yet. So this will be on my to-do list in the next week and a half, is to get this thing zeroed in out to 100 yards. This does have a ballistic drop scope on it, so once I get it sighted in at 100 yards, based on my load weight and the amount of powder or pellets I'm using, it will tell me, if you're zeroed here at 100, here's your 150 or your 125, your 150, 175, 200. Full disclosure, I don't think I'll ever take a shot with a muzzleloader over 100 yards, maybe 120, but definitely most of my stuff is inside of 100. This buck right here was at 85 yards, and I shot that. No rest, no nothing. That was just a freehand shot. I was actually standing in a bunch of cattails that were about chest high in a swale when he came in, and I had nothing to rest my gun on. So it was a free-handed, 85, 89-yard shot. And I like to keep my muzzleloader shots inside of that. Um, Muzzleloaders are devastatingly accurate, especially these inline muzzleloaders where you're not shooting a round ball, but you're shooting a projectile through a threaded or a rifle barrel. Very accurate. There's guys that are very successful and very accurate out to 300 yards with the muzzleloader. I just don't ever find myself in that kind of terrain to take those kinds of shots. If I had my own, ag field that was 200-300 yards shootable, that's one thing, and I would definitely practice and have my muzzleloader set up to do so. But even when it comes to my late season hunting with a muzzleloader, I typically find myself in similar areas that I would find myself during bow season. Obviously, with all the foliage down, shots can be increased, but I am still looking to keep things roughly 100 yards or less. But I still want my muzzleloader to be dead on, and I do still shoot it out to 225 yards just so that I know what it can do, and I know that it's accurate out to those distances. I personally don't care what anybody says. You're never going to get rifle accuracy like you would out of an .6 or a 6.5 Creedmoor or a 7 mag or a 308. You're not going to get that kind of accuracy out of a muzzleloader. But if I can get a 2-inch group at 100 yards with 3 shots inside of 2 inches, I feel very good about that, and that's really, that makes me have a high confidence in my setup. I'm going to kind of go through a step-by-step guide to setting up a muzzleloader. If you, let's say you're just like me, this is brand new out of the box. The only thing I have done so far is I put this in my gun vise, I leveled everything up, I mounted my scope so that I could see properly out of it, and I used my bore sighter here to bore sight this thing. So theoretically, I should be on paper, as we call it, at 100 yards. But I'm going to do a little trick when I sight this in, and for those of you that are going to be sighting in a new muzzle loader, this is a great trick for you guys. Hopefully, you can try it and see how well it works. But we'll get into that here in just a minute. So, when it comes to sighting in any gun, but we're going to talk about it for muzzle loaders because that's what we're talking about here. You can use a lead sled, whatever. I use bags. These bags are the same bags that I use when I sight in my muzzle loader, and I do this off of a shooting bench. So I set my bags up, and I get my gun in there. It's nice and secure. It's not moving. I can hold that thing very very still to zero in my gun, and I'm not waving around or leaning it up against a tree. When I get this set up on my shooting bench, this thing is rock solid, and I can hold this gun very, very still, and that is critically important, regardless of the rifle that you're sighting in. But again, when we're dealing with a muzzleloader, I want this thing rock solid. I don't want it moving. I want to be able to put 3 rounds, basically touching each other at 100 yards. So use a bench, use sandbags, use a lead sled, whatever you got. I just strongly recommend you have it on some kind of a solid rest and not just leaning up against a tree or shooting it off of a bipod or a tripod or things like that. Keep the gun steady. Give it time. Don't just fire 3 shots off in a minute or two. Let that barrel cool down so that everything can get kind of back to normal before you fire your next shot. I personally, after I super clean a gun and when I'm sighting in, I clean everything. It's back down to a super clean gun. But before I fire my next shot, I put a primer in with no load and I follow my barrel. Different muzzle loaders act differently. This one maybe will be different than my last Optima, but I anticipate it to be quite similar. I have found that my CVAs tend to shoot more accurately with a fouled barrel, which is basically all I'm doing is dry firing a primer. And you're just going to get a tunk and some smoke rolling out of your barrel, but it's going to foul that barrel up a little bit, creates a little bit tighter seal around the projectile, which increases accuracy because it doesn't allow gases to get around my projectile. So I like to always have a foul barrel prior to every single shot. Some tricks on bore sighting. This one's great. As you can see here, if you're watching the video, I've got a kit right here made by BSA. I've had this for a number of years. It's got multiple size inserts for different barrels that go from like a .177, like a pellet gun, up to I believe a 54 cal. I think that's what it goes up to. I don't know, but either way, that is a great tool to have. When I bought this thing years ago, I think it was like 50, 60 bucks. I don't know what they are now, but if you can swing it and you have multiple firearms or you just like to shoot, having a bore sighting kit is a fairly inexpensive but a fantastic tool to save you time and money at the range. I can get a scope bore sighted in minutes, and that puts me on paper, as we call it, at 100 yards. And that usually puts me, inside of a foot of bullseye at 100 yards without ever actually firing a shot, regardless of my load, regardless of my grain weight, all that good stuff. It gets me basically inside of a 12-inch circle at 100 yards. So it can significantly save my time, save my money. Ammo is not cheap. It's crazy. I think $43 for a 100 pack of 50/50 777s, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But I shoot pellets. A lot of guys shoot powder, and I think honestly, if I wasn't, for lack of a better term, if I wasn't as lazy as I was, I would shoot powder as well. I think you get more accuracy, definitely more consistency because you have control over what you're weighing by grain / by volume. You can really fine tune your loads. You might find that your load shoots really, really good at 110 grains. When you're shooting pellets, you really have an option of 100 grain or 120 grain. You don't have an ability to really fine tune that. So if you're getting into it and you really want to have control and fine tunability of your loads, loose powder is 100% the way to go. Um, I don't shoot, like I said, I don't shoot terribly far. My shots are going to be inside of 100. I can shoot pellets accurately beyond that. I do make sure that my gun is shooting accurately out to 225, like I said. It's very easy with a speed loader like this to have extra rounds ready to go. I don't have to worry about spilling my powder, all that stuff. So for me, I like to shoot pellets. I shoot 777s. Never had any issues with them. Pyrodex makes pellets. White Hots makes pellets. I don't know what else is out there, but my preference is 777s, and I shoot 50/50s. So I shoot the 50 grain pellets. I stack two. That gives me a 100 grain load. I can go up to 150, but again, I'm not shooting, 300 yards. I don't need a mag load. 100 grains does the trick for me. So back to what we were talking about with the sighting in. If you don't have a bore sighter, there is a trick you can do, and I'm going to reach over and grab this gun again. And this is kind of old school, and this is what I did before I ever had a bore sighter. But set up 13 yards away from your target, and remember that 13 because it's going to be important. But get yourself set up. Take your breech plug out from your inline muzzle loader. And I'm just going to do it with this one, but let's picture I have my whole lead sled or whatever here. I'm going to take this off my shooting bench, and I'm going to set my muzzle loader up. Again, just imagine I've got both of them here. I'm going to set my muzzle loader up just like this so that the stock is out of the way and I can see down the barrel. Now, typically I would have everything here and I would have this locked in place. So just imagine it is for this exercise. On a bench with my gun steadied like this, I can look right down the barrel. If you don't have a bore sighter, this is a quick trick to get you on paper with a scope. So, or iron sights for that matter, but we're going to talk about it with a scope here. So I'm going to look down this and I'm going to move everything until when I look down my barrel, my target is centered in my barrel. I want the bullseye to be centered in my barrel as I'm looking down it. Now, without touching and moving the gun, from there at 13 yards, I'm going to take my caps off my scope and I'm going to move my scope to where my crosshairs are dead center in that bullseye. And if you do that, and you take your time and you make sure that you're good and centered in that barrel, you'll be on paper at 100 yards. It's a great trick if you don't have a bore sighter or anybody that has a bore sighter that you can borrow. It's not ideal, but you got to do what you got to do, basically. So set this gun back down. All right. So that's going to get you on paper at 100 yards, and then from there you would sight in as normal. Again, you have to make sure that the barrel. Whoa! I knew that was going to happen. I could feel it. It wasn't super steady, but there we go. All right. You have to make sure that the muzzle loader is steady. You can't do it with a bolt action or with a, pump action or whatever. You got to be able to look down the barrel, make sure it's steady, make sure it's secured, it's not moving. Make sure that when you're looking through that barrel, you're not off cocked to one side or the other, and that those crosshairs of your target are dead center down your barrel, and then adjust your scope to meet that. Regardless of where it is, that will get you on paper at 100 yards. Then you just reinstall the breech plug and you go ahead and shoot and fine tune your zero from there. We talked about the 13-yard rule. Let me take a quick drink. I love the 13-yard rule. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. It's not perfect, but man, can it save you some time. I don't know how many times I've gone in shotguns with people, or they're sighting a gun in, and what do they want to do? They want to go to 100 yards and they want to sight their rifle in. That's fine and dandy, but it can waste time and it can waste ammunition. With a muzzle loader, basically any load, but we're just going to talk about my setup. So 100 grain and a 290 grain projectile at 13 yards. If I set my lead sled up at 13 yards and I'm on paper at 13 yards, I'm going to be even tighter than I am. Oops. I'm going to be even tighter than I am at 100 yards, but let's just zero in at 13. If I zero in and I keep myself 3/4 of an inch low at 13 yards, perfect left and right, but 3/4 of an inch low at 13 yards. Now, when I take my muzzle loader and I back up to 100, I should be dead on, very, very close to dead on. Muzzleloaders shoot at a slower trajectory than a lot of rifles do. So at 13 yards, your bullet is still actually traveling up. So if you're low at 13 yards, when you back up to 100, it's going to be hitting the apex of its arc, and it should be dead on. And then as you drop and increase distance, obviously you'll get a little bit lower. But this is how I sight my muzzle loaders in. I use the 13-yard rule. I zero in at 13, then I back up to 100. You might have to make a couple of clicks. Maybe you're a 1/4 inch low at 100, whatever, but you're going to be very, very close to that bullseye, and it's going to save you a lot of time. And that's important to me. I don't want to waste my ammo. I don't want to waste my powder. I don't want to waste my primers. I want to be zeroed in and feel very confident within 2 shots, and then be able to put my 3-shot group together, everything touching at 100 yards, and then I know I'm good to go. So, again, if you're hitting roughly 3/4 of an inch low at 13 yards, you're going to be pretty much dead on at 100. Make those minor tweaks at 100 yards, and you're good to go. Again, this saves time, it saves money, and it can save a lot of frustration. Just remember when you're doing that at 13 yards and you're zeroing in, just remember that your clicks on your scope, those are 1/4 inch increments at 100 yards. So at 13 yards, if you're shooting 2 inches right at 100 yards, that would be 8 clicks to get you back in. At 13 yards, it's probably going to be more like 15 clicks, maybe a little bit more. So just keep that in mind. Don't just click it over 8 times and be like, oh, I only moved it an inch. Well, it's because you're significantly closer. You're going to have to move it a lot farther to tighten that up at 13 yards. But I love that rule. So look it up, write it down, remember it. 13-yard rule will save you time and money and frustration when you're zeroing in a muzzle loader. Next thing I want to talk about, and this one's just kind of a fun one because to me it doesn't matter, but your 2 most common loads on a muzzle loader is a 45 caliber and a 50 caliber. There's pros and cons to each. I'm going to talk about each. I shoot a 50 cal. I prefer the 50 cal, and we'll talk about the pros and the cons to it. But then I will tell you why I prefer a 50 cal over a 45 cal. So pros right off the bat. You're going to find the most availability of projectiles in a 50 cal. You can get more weight out of them, which is going to be good for penetration, kinetic energy, knockdown power, and energy transfer from your projectile into the animal that you're harvesting. When you're in thicker cover, obviously that additional weight, that additional energy is great. Should you happen to clip a twig or something, it's not going to create a tumble effect to your projectile and push it off course significantly. I'm not advocating shooting through thick brush, but there are times where you might not even see it, but maybe there's a small branch or twig between you and the animal. And if you hit that with a 50 cal, 290 grain projectile, it might deviate course, but we're talking, a 1/16 of an inch. versus a lighter, smaller projectile that might move 2 inches. Um, those are why I prefer a 50 cal. Some of the cons, depending on your grain load of your powder, really regardless, just because it's got to push more weight forward. There is going to be more recoil. They're not as flat shooting as a 45 cal, so you're going to have a greater arc to your projectile at distances than you would with a 45 cal. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of a 45. 45, you're going to get flatter trajectory, higher velocities. Um, when it comes to long range, let's say beyond 150 yards, a 45 cal is typically going to be more accurate for those longer range setups. The cons to a 45, oftentimes finding a bullet for a 45 cal is more difficult. Your options are limited. You do get less energy from the projectile into the animal with that smaller load. And I have not run into this. I don't know exactly what states are out there, but I have heard that certain states, a 45 cal is not uh, a legal bullet size for muzzleloading. So just keep that in mind and make sure you know the regs where you're going hunting. Um, pick what you like, shoot what you like. Why I like the 50 is because uh, I have a plethora of options available to me as far as a bullet, what I want to shoot. Um, I shoot 290 grain Hornady bore drivers. Great expansion, great penetration, great knockdown power. I've shot TC shockwaves. Um, CVA actually recommends power belts. I personally, and this is just me, maybe it's my load, maybe it's my setup, but I have not gotten the consistency and accuracy out of power belts that I have gotten out of like TC shockwaves or Hornadies. And I've heard from other people, I can't attest to this because I've never actually shot an animal with a power belt, but I've heard that they have a tendency to mushroom out very, very quickly and you don't get a ton of penetration, which I I would love. I love a good mix. I want to get penetration. I want to get all the way through that animal, but I want good expansion because I want to do as much internal damage as possible. But I want an entrance and exit ideal. That's going to increase a blood trail should that animal take off. Um, so there's different situations, there's different manufacturers, but again, when it comes to the amount of options available to you, you're going to find more out of a 50. You're going to get more kinetic energy, more knockdown power out of a 50. That's why I prefer a 50 cal versus a 45. Um, we talked about it already, but I'll talk about it again. You have the option for loose powder versus pellets. The benefits of loose powder is you're going to get significantly more accuracy, particularly at longer ranges. You can fine tune your charges. Maybe you find that your muzzle loader shoots, just money. It's just cherry at 108 grains. You're not getting that with pellets. You're going to get 50, 100, 150, or 60, 120. That's what you're going to get with pellets because they're pre-sized, pre-weighed. They burn cleaner. Powder burns cleaner than pellets do. So you're not going to get as fouled up of a barrel as you would shooting pellets. Um, the cons to loose powder, uh, it requires measurements, and you have to be accurate in your measurements because there is a tremendous difference between 100 grains of loose powder and 110 grains of loose powder. So you have to be accurate. One of the biggest reasons I don't shoot loose powder is in the event that I need a follow up shot. The last thing I want to do is be dicking around trying to pour loose powder down my barrel. Heaven forbid I miss the barrel and I spill a little bit. Well, I can completely change the charge, completely change the trajectory. Whereas with pellets, if I'm in a hurry and I miss with a pellet, I grab another pellet and I go in. With loose powder, if you're running a preset load like a speed loader for loose powder, if you miss, hopefully you've got another one. Otherwise, you're gonna have to try to guesstimate how much powder missed the barrel. Um, that's why I prefer pellets. The pellets are faster, they're more convenient. You get good consistency out of them. And like I said, they're much better for reloading in the field should a follow up shot be required. Um, the cons to pellets versus loose is they are not as accurate as loose powder is, particularly when you get to ranges beyond 150 yards. Um, you don't have that fine tunability that you have with loose powder. So I guess again, this is a situation where you shoot what you like, try them both. Um, but if you want precision, you want a tack driver, you want to be able to shoot 250, 300 yards with your muzzle loader, I would go with loose powder. Um, if you want the convenience, the ease of loading, um, the repeatability, I would go with pellets. Um, that's my personal preference, like I said, and it's just because um, I don't want to mess around with loose powder, especially if I have to do a follow up shot. Um, when it comes to projectiles for whitetails, there's a lot of them out there. I prefer. I like the TC Shockwaves. I like Hornady's. You get really good accuracy out of these. You get good high velocity. You have a nice heavy projectile that's going to hit that animal with a lot of kinetic energy, and you get great energy transfer, great expansion, but you still get that pass through as well. There's also conicals or full bores. Uh, you don't need the jacket that you get with like my Hornadies or my TCs. Um, Certain states actually require a full bore. You typically get good deep penetration, but you do not necessarily get the expansion that you would get. And then with both, oftentimes you can find them polymer tipped. Polymer tips are great because they expand very well. They're very aerodynamic, and they're ideal for longer shots in that 100 to 200 yard range to get more accuracy out of your projectile. Um, as with powder, whether it's pellets versus loose, uh, choose the bullet that flies the best from your gun. I know these things are mass produced, but I'm telling you, especially with muzzleloaders, they all seem to kind of have their own personality. Some are going to like a little hotter charge, some are going to like a little less charge, some are going to like a little lighter projectile, some are going to like a little heavier. Shoot whatever you can afford to shoot and find what your gun likes, what your setup likes, and run with it. That simple. Don't change things up all the time. When you find something that works, stick with it. Um, I talked about it early on, but cold weather can be a bitch when it comes to muzzleloader season. Um, you know, if you have to take a follow up shot, oftentimes hands are cold. You don't have the dexterity there. You have to manually load these things. It's not just cracking the bolt back and throwing another one in. So it can be a challenge to reload these in the field. Uh, whether you're running loose or pellets, make sure you keep that powder dry. Keep it as warm as you can. Obviously, when it's in your gun, sitting all day, there's not much you can do about that. But keep your spares as warm and dry as possible. Um, I know people that have kept their charges in a speed loader, and then they keep like a hot pocket hand warmer in there to help keep things warm until it's time to use them. Um, Again, every time you shoot, make sure you swab the barrel, pull any moisture out of there that you can. Um, there's something else I was just about to talk about when it comes to this, and as I was talking, it slipped my mind, but I'll see if it comes back to me as we get into this. Um, not a whole lot more to go through, but when you're shooting a muzzleloader, just remember that there's going to be a fair amount of smoke once you fire that shot off. Um, One of the challenges when you actually fire at an animal is, especially on really calm days, you're going to get this big poof of smoke in front of you. It can be very difficult to see. So, another reason why it's important after you pull that trigger to stay in the scope and stay on that animal is to see for as long as you can, so you can see the reaction, see the direction the animal took off on. Um, Ideally, and this is just hunting in general, but if you can keep the wind in your face from where you anticipate your shot being, uh, that smoke is going to move beyond you a little bit quicker than if the smoke or the wind is blowing towards the animal, or if it's a super calm day where it just wants to stay stagnant. Um, Not a whole lot you can do about that. You just have to, um, trust your shot, stay in the scope for as long as possible, and really watch the reaction of that animal so you have a good confidence of what exactly happened. Um, Something else that's a great thing to do in the range is once you're zeroed in and your gun's good to go, have everything ready, cleaned, in hunting condition, take a shot on target and immediately go into reload and try to get another one reloaded and try to shoot through your own smoke. It's going to change things. It's going to be harder to get on target, but it's something that with repetitiveness can become easier and just something that you become accustomed to more or less. So I don't remember what I was going to say. It was important. If it comes back to me, I'll throw a post on Facebook. Um, but yeah, so really just to close it up, I love muzzleloader hunting. Like I said, the guys that are doing it old school, I have so much respect for you. I love the inlines. Um, I love the mix of the modernity of an inline, but you still have the tradition of a muzzleloader. There's nothing cooler than the smell of fresh burning gunpowder. It's a beautiful smell. It gets me fired up every time I smell it. Um, you still only get that one shot before you have to reload, so it is reminiscent of archery hunting where things are much more one at a time. You only get this one chance. If you have to do a follow up, there's a lot of things that have to go into play to make that happen. Um, but if you keep your gun clean, you keep it dry, you maintain it after season. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I really jacked up my old CVA because I just completely forgot to fully clean that barrel out, and it wreaked havoc on it. And I'm embarrassed to say it, but it happened to me. But I will take much better care of this one, and I will be much more attuned to making sure that I clean my muzzleloader when I get back from Ohio, and it doesn't sit there for a year, and then I'm like, oh, did I actually you know clean my muzzleloader when I came back? I don't want that to happen again. So keep it clean, keep it maintained. Oil's your friend. Something I didn't talk about early on was boar butter. Not always necessary, but it is a great barrel lubricant that can help seal things and can help prevent corrosion and rust in the barrel. Um, a dab will do you when it comes to boar butter. You don't need to slather it in there. And it can also make reloading a little bit easier. So if you're going out with a muzzleloader, guys, have fun, embrace the tradition. I hope you get to smell that beautiful smell of gunpowder after you fire at an animal. Stay on target, be safe, have fun. Um, that's really all I had. I'm excited. I'm excited to get down to Indiana. I'm excited to get to Ohio. We'll see what happens. I don't really know what to expect. I'm excited to bring Brandon down with me. I'm excited to uh, give him a taste of what it's like to hunt with me. I don't try to go super hard ass. I try to have a good time, but when I feel like I'm in it, I get into it. So it's going to be a good time, and I know he's up for it. He is hungry. He is excited to learn, and I have three daughters. All three of them have kind of dipped their toe into hunting, and all three of them have kind of decided it's not for them. And I can respect that. I totally get it. I'm not likening Brandon to my child by any means because he is, a little bit older than my oldest kid. But it is cool to have somebody who's young, who's hungry, who's excited, that I can pass a little bit of what I've learned over the years down to. So, Brandon, can't wait to get down there. We're gonna have a great time. I hope we get on some deer, but regardless, I think we'll learn a lot and we'll have a great time. So that's my spiel today. I hope you guys that are still grinding it out during firearm season are enjoying yourselves. I love this time of year because the hustle and bustle is kind of fading off. Uh, Everything's changing. Things are slowing down. It's a great time of year to just go out there, watch the sunrise, take it in, enjoy it. Who knows what can happen? Sometimes guys get up and start moving around and they can push deer to you. That can happen during firearm season. That can happen during muzzleloader season. So just enjoy it. Be in the moment. Be present with what you're doing. Uh, give thanks for it. Every opportunity we have to be in the field is a moment to be thankful for and to embrace and to cherish. So that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Straight arrows, straight bullets. Stay warm. This is Wild Spirits Outdoors. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Wild Spirits Outdoors. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, follow, and share wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us grow the tribe and keep on chasing the wild. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Spirits Outdoors, and also on YouTube at Wild Spirits Pod. You can also head over to www.wildspiritsoutdoors.com for more content. Until next time, chase the wild, feel the spirit.